MakeCAP Power, we can apply a constraint to many nets or parts in one operation. In this movie, we're going to see the many different ways that you can select various collections of nets or parts and then apply these constraints. In Capture Property Editor, you can only apply a constraint to one net or one part in a single operation. In MakeCAP Power, you select a number of nets or a number of parts, and then you can apply the constraint to that selection. In this movie, we're going to show you many different easy-to-use ways of creating the selection of nets or parts that you want. What we'd like to do is to select a bunch of nets or parts, and once selected, pick a common constraint value and apply it to all of those in a single step. So from the graphical grid view in MakeCAP, I'm going to select the Q nets with my mouse, right mouse click. That will bring up the database form. It's already populated with units. And for stub length, I'll give it 100 mils. You can see that all the Q's are in the collection box, and I'll say OK, and that value has now been applied in a single step to all of those nets. Let's do this same process again, but this time let's select graphically, and we don't have to be contiguous within the grid to do this. So I'll highlight the Q nets, and then holding my control key, I'll highlight the VD nets. Then I'll also highlight the OE net. And now right mouse clicking, we can see that all of these have been selected, and I'll give them a value of 50 mils this time. And there they are populated in the grid and ready for the capture database. Once you've made an initial selection of nets or parts and apply constraints to those, you don't need to reselect them to apply other constraints. MakeCAP will retain your selection and allow you to apply other constraints to that selection until you change the selection. So I'll clear our selection. That was our last selection, and I'll go up to one of the constraint column titles and press the little three-dot icon. And when that opens the data form, we'll see that those same last selection of nets are still retained, ready to receive rules. So let's give it 100 ohms, plus or minus 10 ohms. And we can just walk across any of the column titles that we want and apply more rules. These same nets are still selected until we change that selection. Now we're in the electrical constraints worksheet screen, but this net selection is retained across all the worksheets. So let's go over to spacing, and let's go ahead and pick line to SMD pin spacing, and we'll see we still have that same selection of nets ready to receive physical spacing or electrical constraint rules until we change the selection. We can also select nets or parts for constraints using data mining. So I have a form open for MaxV account in Nets, and I'm going to go to the Choose Nets button, and now I have a search wildcard capability. And so let's go and try and select the Q bus nets. So I'll do a Q wildcard, apply. It's going to highlight them in my list of nets that have been extracted from the schematic DSN file. Select highlighted nets, say OK, and now I've selected the Q using a wildcard, and I can give that a V count of 4. Say OK, just as if I had highlighted and right mouse clicked to open up my selection window. So let's go back to MaxV account, and it's going to retain our list, and I'll go back to Choose Nets, And this time I will do a Q star again. Select those. And now I want to select OE but not out A or out B. So several ways I can do this. I can do an O question mark. That will take a wildcard for the second character. And when I do an apply, it selects OE but not out A and out B. And now it's in my collection box that I can review before committing. Or I could select just O star. And when I select this time, I'm going to collect the out A and out B and say, oh, I don't like that, so I can highlight that and unselect those from my collection box, and so on. So I can select a variety of ways. I can also simply highlight from the list and bring those over. And when I say OK, I give it a new value, this time of 5. And all of the selected nets now have a value of 5 for max V account. MakeCAP's Net Chooser and Parts Chooser allows for Boolean combinations to easily and quickly powerfully choose just what nets or parts you want to select to apply constraints to. So let's see this in a more interesting example. I'm in the physical screen and I'm going to deal with minimum line width for this example. And first I'm going to create a bus of the BA 0 through 3 nets. I'll right mouse click and I'll call this the BA bus. So we now have a bus called BA that has these 4 nets in it. And now I'm going to go to the net physical type constraint, which if I go to the easy view, which looks like it will in Constraint Manager, rather than the PCB editor property name, you'll see that net physical type actually translates to a physical class when net listed forward into Constraint Manager. Let's go back over here. Net physical type is the actual name of the Allegro or PCB editor constraint. And I'm going to select all the B nets. So I'll open up my choose nets. I'll do a B star. Say OK. And I'm going to call this the B nets class. So the BA bus is actually a subset of the B nets class. Now I want to come over to minimum line width. And I'm going to go over to the chooser and I can do adds and subtracts to make this a more easy and powerful process for selecting. So first I'll come in and I'll select, I'll just do this graphically, all the Q nets. And I'll select the G nets. I'll do a G star, highlight those, select. And you can see I have buses and classes also listed here. So I'm going to select the BA bus, and now you'll see all the nets that were in the BA bus have been added. So I can select nets for constraints, but I can use bus collections to select them easily. So often you're going to create buses or classes for just this purpose, to be able to identify associated nets or parts. Now I'll go to classes. I'll select B nets for classes as well, and that got me the B and C's. And if I would like to get rid of the BAs, I can go back over to buses, and since it's selected, it's now in the selected bus box. And if I highlight it and unselect it, I can also remove nets from my collection box by class or bus or even wildcards with my filter. And so I can do Boolean combinations. I can select these nets by name, these nets by wildcard, these nets by bus, these nets by class, and I can also from that collection subtract nets by bus, nets by class, nets by wildcard, and I can do the same with parts. And now that I've selected all of these, I can give these a width of 10, and they've all been given a width of 10. You can highlight nets or parts in your open capture schematic, and they'll be selected in MakeCAP for adding constraints. So we have an open schematic here. Let's select BA0 through BA3. They've been selected in MakeCAP. I'll right mouse click in propagation delay, and you'll see that BA0 and BA3 are ready for their constraint values.